Hi, folks. Well, I thought I would just give you a little in person update because I don't get to see anybody anymore at all, how I'm doing. So, as you might have gathered from all my posts on social media, or you might have gotten an occasional email from me, I haven't been well, and it's now been 6 months. So, this all started 6 months ago. Today, on the 17th of March, I got my first symptoms that indicated I might have COVID-19. Now, at the time, as was the case in the UK, you could not go for a test, and you were basically told that if it wasn't severe enough to require hospitalization, you just stayed home and managed the symptoms. So that's what I did. And I spoke to my doctors whenever I felt there was something that needed attention, and it was a telephone appointment, not an in person one. And over the next 6 weeks, I had a series of prescriptions to deal with some of the more acute issues to be dealt with in the early days. Now, at the time, as I said, there was no testing to confirm I had COVID. And in the UK, by the time the testing became available to the general public, it was early June, and there was no point in me going for it because it was 3 months on since me first having the symptoms. Antibody testing is a slightly different matter, and it has not been generally available again to Scottish residents, and so therefore I've never gone for one. And it is something that I probably will look into, but it's not really a priority to me, to be honest, at the moment, because my health takes priority over running around trying to get various tests done. I suppose the most diabolical thing about this whole experience is that in the early days, it was the panic about was I going to die of COVID-19, and then I didn't. And then it was just presumed that you were fine. And then as time went on, I started to get a relapse of various symptoms and totally new symptoms about 6 weeks in, and they got more severe and more intermittent. But it was like an advent calendar. You didn't know what you were going to get or how long it was going to last. And nothing was really severe enough. I was lucky. Some people did have very severe symptoms and had to go attend to the hospital. But in general, it was just manage it yourself. Swollen lymph nodes, lymphatic massage. Sore ribs, possible costochondritis, take some ibuprofen. A headache, take some ibuprofen. Fatigue, rest. And a whole variety, do you have sore eyes or dry eyes? We'll get some eye drops. So there's about 50 symptoms in total that I'm dealing with on a regular basis. And some of them are there almost every day. Inflammation or painful joints and legs and feet and fingers is prevalent, as is the chronic fatigue, which I've had to learn how to manage to be able to get anything done. And I suppose it's just a day-to-day thing, and I've gotten to the point where I have managed my situation to the utmost extent. I have spoken to my doctor. She did run some blood work to determine that I had a slightly underactive thyroid. However, I have had an underactive thyroid for about 20 years, so I'm already on medication for that. So it was really more to tweak my treatment rather than actually to put me onto a new regime. And it takes about 3 months for the blood test to show up any difference to that. So there's no real difference. I've been on it for about 3 weeks and the fatigue hasn't changed at all. The other thing that blood work showed was low lymphocytes, which does confirm I had a very serious viral infection, but obviously doesn't confirm that it was actually COVID. At the time, she said that there wasn't any point in putting me through an antibody test because the high rate of false negatives is very prevalent. And that is the case if you know anything about COVID-19, is that although your body might be effective in fighting off the infection, it might not actually be generating antibodies to a level sufficient that can be detected by a test. Or in fact, even if you have generated antibodies, they might have faded away because it was 6 months ago, or your body actually fought it off via the immune system without generating antibodies at all. I have learned so much about the immune system in the past 6 months, you can't believe it. And I suppose one of the things that I find is most interesting, although not in a good way, is that patients like me, people who are suffering through it, we actually are keeping far more abreast of ongoing developments in treatment and symptoms and what's being done, not only in the UK, but across the world because of patient online forums. And the patients are by and large ahead of the medical community at this point. And just now, the medical community and the governments are beginning to wake up to this fact with regards to public policy. But in the long term, the prognosis isn't known. This is a new virus. Nobody knows how long this is going to last. If anyone's telling you that my symptoms are going to disappear in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, that is just a guess. Whether a vaccine will help me or not, whether I can get reinfected or not, all of these are unknowns. So it's left me in a very difficult position. But I'd say for myself, I have never been off work except for the first week. I had a very understanding employer who allowed me to work only the hours that I could when I could. And that's been really helpful because it meant I could focus on my healing and resting when I needed to. And if I told them I just needed to take a day or two because I couldn't handle anymore, they have been completely understanding and continue to be like that. And so I'm very thankful of that. And at home, my two men children have been quite helpful in ensuring that the house continues to run in the way that it needs to. So I have been able to focus on my healing as much as I can, as much as I'm able to. But it is frustrating not knowing what the outcome was. There is no diagnosis. There is no treatment. There is no end in sight for me. And I will have days where I'm feeling almost normal, and that feels great. And then I will slide back into a whole week or more worth of symptoms that make it so difficult to even function at about 20% of what I used to be. And that is just a very difficult thing mentally to deal with. So I have kept my spirits up by doing a lot of reading. I've watched a lot of baseball. I even amazingly picked up my cello again for the first time in 7 months. And really the main thing has been interacting with people socially online and whatever, or emails, sometimes Zoom calls or Skype calls. And everyone who's been in touch with me, thank you so much, because it has meant the world to me to be in touch with everybody during these tough times. And your message of support and understanding has been tremendous, enabling me to really cope on a day-to-day basis when sometimes it all started to get a bit too much. And sometimes it still does, because not even knowing what you're sick with or if there's going to be a treatment in future is a tremendously devastating and frustrating thing to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And I take advice from people who have been previously diagnosed with chronic illnesses like Lyme disease and fibromyalgia and ME, who have sort of related to me the difficulties in getting doctors to take them seriously, and then the fact that there's very little that can be done once they have been diagnosed, if they've been diagnosed. I am very positive that I am going to continue to improve, because to be honest, I have seen small, measurable improvements each month that has gone on, but they're very, very small, and it's like climbing your way out of a very steep mud pit. Every time you get a little bit, you slide back down again, and then you go back up a little bit and you slide back down again. I can see the top of that pit. I can see it. I can't quite reach it yet, and I'm just having to hope that through my own continued efforts to look after myself and my health, and the fact that I am now in contact with my doctor, and there is an increasing awareness in the medical community that yes, we're real, we're not making up all these symptoms, and something needs to be done, that I will continue to interact and hopefully get treatments as they become available, or at least understanding and as to what I'm going through, and if there's any support that can be had from a therapeutic point of view, that will be most beneficial. But to close this off, I just wanted to say that if any of you, and I doubt it's the people who are on my social media think like this, but if any of you are in any doubt that COVID-19 is real, even though I was never tested positive, it is now confirmed that if I have all these symptoms, that it's pretty much symptomatically confirmed. And therefore, COVID-19 is real. The long-term effects are not yet known, And to be fair, the estimates by King's College London are that 1 in 10 people who suffer COVID are going to end up in a situation like me with long-term health implications. Now, I have gotten off fairly easily because most of my complications have been fairly intermittent, irritating rather than life-threatening, but I know a lot of people who have had to go to the hospital, who've been diagnosed or suffered severe complications months and months and months, so they're at a similar down the route as me, around 6 months. So I feel very fortunate that I am not yet in that position. However, I could be. And so I just have to wait and see what happens and see what support's available. But COVID can cause long-term, very life-threatening, or at least health-impairing complications. And so I want to just remind everybody that yes, I can understand pandemic fatigue is setting in, and that mask wearing and social distancing and not being able to resume normal life is really frustrating. I understand it. Guess who's been locked in her house for 6 months, not able to do anything? However, I understand also that I don't want other people to go through what I've gone through. And I don't want you to be one of the people who catches this and then ends up like me, or in even a worse situation, until we can find an effective vaccine, and we don't know when that will be, or until we can find effective treatments for it. Again, we don't know when that will be. All I can say is please take seriously all of the public policy interactions that are, or prescriptions that are being made by your local authorities, and take sensible measures when you're around friends and family, and protect those who are more vulnerable to the adverse COVID complications. But please also recognize it hits everyone, and it can hit anyone, and there's no predisposition to an underlying condition. You can be fit, you can be healthy, you can be young, you can run marathons, you can have no underlying health conditions, and you can end up in my position as well. And that is anecdotal experience, but it's also being recognized that that is just the case. So I'm going to sign off from now, but I'm just going to say, everybody, I'm still here. I have my good days and my bad days, but my bad days are often compensated for the fact that I've got a lot of family and friends out there who are rooting for me to get better, and I can't say how much that really makes a difference to me. Anyway, guys, here's hoping that I'm not doing another one of these in 6 months' time. Ever in the meantime, I'm away to have a nice herbal tea to celebrate my 6-month anniversary. All right,